everyone, welcome to Osteo, that's with a capital T-E-A, where OsteoWarriors in treatment and recent survivors spill the tea on all things osteosarcoma and cancer from the adolescent and young adult cancer patient perspective. Listen in on our honest and personal conversations about our osteo experiences, stories, and who knows what else. We get off track. This podcast discusses all aspects of the young adult cancer experience in a conversational format. Audience discretion is advised. Like and follow MIB agents on social media for all the intel and hot goss.
Register now to save your spot at our Factor 2024 conference, June 20th through 22nd in Cleveland, Ohio. Registration is $335 for individuals and free for OsteoWarriors ages 8 through 22. We've got scientific sessions with doctors from all over the country and I think some people from around the world as well. We've got Warrior HQ, which is so fun. We've got a wellness track. Last year there were therapy bunnies and slime. I'm really hoping both of those things are brought back this year. We're also having a prom at Factor this year, which is going to be so fun. It's for all ages and all attendees, doctors included. So if you missed your prom due to being in treatment or because of COVID, I missed my junior prom because of COVID, and my senior prom was on the football field, and it was really traumatic, if I'm going to be honest. So I'm really looking forward to the Factor prom. But it is going to be such a fun time, so you do not want to miss out. Visit mibagents.org/factor-conference to learn more and register today. Well, welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning into Osteo today. We have a super exciting episode for you today. We have some veteran osteo panelists joining us. We also have some first-timers. So excited for everyone to share their story. But yeah, we're going to be talking about traveling as an AYA cancer patient. We have some amputees on. We have some limb salvage patients on. So I'm super excited to dive on in. But without further ado, we have to do our first and favorite segment. What's the tea? No, like literally, what is the tea? It's our favorite segment where we go around and share what tea we're drinking and we rate it and give it a review. So I'll kick us off. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Camille. I am 21. I am the president of MIB's Junior Advisory Board for 2024. I am a psychology and brain sciences student at Boston University. Brief osteosarcoma overview. I was diagnosed in January of 2013 with metastatic osteosarcoma. It was in my right tibia and it also spread to both my lungs. Since then, I have relapsed now 9 times. My last scan was in March, and I relapsed again, 6 months off chemo, YOLO, super fun. So I'm heading into some ablations soon, possibly radiation and more chemo. But for now we're living it up. We're really living it up. Today I am drinking, what is the name? Mia helped me pick this out. It's black cherry berry herbal tea by Celestial Seasonings. I've never had this type before. I've had the sleepy time tea, of course, but let's give it a little.
Just make sure you aerate the palate.
I don't know if I can say this, but and just take this out of I can't say it. It's giving black cherry White Claw and not in a good way. It's giving
I think you can fully say that. I don't know what you're talking. You're 21 years old.
I am 21 years old. Yes. Yes. This is an AYA podcast, so I can say that. But so it's giving that non-carbonated and
that's awful.
So honestly, I'd give it a 4 out of 10. This is
I helped you pick.
You helped me pick, Mia.
I let you down. I'm a terrible co-host. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, this is probably my lowest rating ever on Osteo, and we're on season 3. So let that speak for itself. But please go out and get the sleepy time tea. That bear on there is so relaxing. I want to be him. But Mia, I'll pass it on over to you.
Well, hello, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Mia. I live in LA with my mom and our 5 cats and 2 dogs. I am currently helping run the zoo that we have, and I am a certified Pilates instructor. I like hanging out with my amazing girlfriend Jessie, who has been a panelist on Osteo before, and just kind of gallivanting about, living my life, traveling, and doing whatever I can for MIB. And I'm currently looking forward to going to the Hinterland Music Festival. And I'm really excited to get some tips from all of you on traveling because I have never been to Iowa. So if you have any tips for Iowa, let me know.
I don't.
No shade, no tea, no shade to Iowa. Yeah. So I was diagnosed with osteosarcoma of the right proximal tibia in September of 2018. I had my limb salvage surgery at the end of September of 2018. I still have the same, internal prosthetic. His name is Rodney. I also just had a screw put into my ankle because due to all the chemo and prednisone I have been on, when I broke my ankle a year and a half ago, it never healed, and I didn't realize until I sprained it again later on. And then they were like, oh, it never healed. So I have a screw in there now too, and I haven't named the screw yet. So any suggestions?
We'll really have to ask the audience about that one.
We will.
Leave a
And
comment down
please,
below
yes.
for names.
Names for the screw in my ankle, please. And I have 2 ablations coming up. I had a PET scan Friday, and I am currently waiting on those results. So we love a little bit of anxiety to start the week. And yeah, I'm not in treatment other than having ablations and following up with scans, which is absolutely lovely. But also, we all know the tornado of watch and wait and what it's like to live a few months at a time. But I am currently drinking, due to my anxiety levels, lavender and chamomile tea with probiotics because I had food poisoning on Tuesday. So, gut healing, and it tastes really good. I love lavender. It's one of my favorite herbs. The linalool in it is very nice. That's the terpene that makes it smell like lavender. And it's very relaxing, but it is lukewarm because I made it earlier. So I'm gonna go 7 out of 10. And Penelope, I will send it over to you.
Hey guys, I'm Penelope. I am 21 years old and I'm from just outside of Atlanta, Georgia. And right now I go to school at Georgia Tech, go Jackets, where I study international affairs and French, and I have a minor in city planning. Um, and I'm a 4th year. I don't know if I said that. I'm graduating in the fall. I'm excited. But I was diagnosed in November 2022 with osteosarcoma in my left distal femur. And I went through my treatment last spring and summer, and got LSS last June. And then on my 3-month follow-up, after I had surgery in each of my lungs to remove tiny nodules, I had my scans and it came back with large tumors in my lungs. So right now I'm on regorafenib, Stivarga, and so that's currently the treatment that I'm on. And that, unfortunately, before I started getting on that treatment, my leg was like bending really well and stuff. Then I got on that treatment and now my leg is very stiff. It was bending up to like 130 degrees, and then now it really does not get more than like 55. So that's kind of part of it was crazy. It was literally like 4 days later. It was after I started the treatment, like it only went to 80, and then it's just like decreased from there. So that's kind of part of my travel experience, is dealing with that. For my tea, I'm drinking chamomile tea, pretty classic. It's kind of all I have, but I found this mug in my cabinet. So I guess it's one of my roommates, and I wanted to use it because it says something about by appointment to His Majesty the King of Sweden. So I'm not sure what the King of Sweden had to do with this mug, but it's very royal and it's delicious. I put honey in it. Probably like 8 out of 10. It's not anything like mind blowing, but it's classic. So delicious. Sloane,
Hi,
what are you going
uh,
to
I'm Sloane. I'm 19 and I grew up in Chicago. My family now lives in Atlanta, Georgia, and I currently live in Denton, Texas, for college. I go to the University of North Texas for vocal jazz performance. I was diagnosed with osteo in my distal right femur in 2016, 2 weeks after I turned 12. I went through full MAP protocol and had an initial limb salvage, replacing almost my entire femur and my entire knee. And I lived with that for 6 years, and it was very painful for me. I had dealt with a lot of chronic pain, and none of my surgeons or doctors would do anything about it until I went to Houston and convinced the surgeon to amputate my leg. And I am now an elective above the knee amputee, and I couldn't be happier, and I am finally pain free. Um, I am currently drinking warm water with honey because my voice has not been happy this week. And I didn't feel like making the water hot enough for tea. So I have water and honey. Um, and honestly, it's not bad. I would rate it maybe like a 7 out of 10. It's not great, it's not terrible.
I was expecting it to be worse than my White Claw tea, but go off,
No,
queen.
I like grew up with like just having honey and water because it's simple, it helps your voice.
It's good for the throat.
So
It
interesting.
is. Sometimes I just don't want extra flavors, but I need the honey, so that's how you get that. And I will pass it on to Sammy.
I'm Sammy or Samantha, but I go by Sammy because it's less formal. I'm 21 years old. I'm from Victorville, California, which is about an hour and 30 to 2 hours from LA, from the high desert. I'm currently pursuing a degree in biology. I used to attend St. Mary's College of California up north near San Francisco, like in the Bay Area. And I'm continuing my degree here at a local community college. I'll probably be transferring soon. I was diagnosed with osteosarcoma in August of 2022, just 5 days before my 20th birthday. And that came about because I used to be a Division I cross country runner, and I was having a lot of knee pain, and no one could tell me what it was. And that was happening for about a year, up to like a year before I was actually diagnosed. So it was a pretty long, painful process. And I was finally diagnosed with osteosarcoma in my right tibia, really close to my knee. And I underwent treatment from August of 2022 to May of 2023. And in November of 2022, I had a limb salvage surgery. So now I have a prosthetic knee in my right leg. As of right now, I'm NED, thankfully, no treatment or anything. Yeah, can't run anymore, but there's other things. I'm happy to be alive.
So many other
So
things.
yeah, and then right now I'm drinking it says it's chamomile lavender, so kind of similar to what everyone else is, with a touch of rose. And then it says it's for love. And I was like, you know what? I could use some of that,
We
I
all could.
yeah. I would give it like maybe a 7.5 out of 10. I mean, I'm not experiencing any love right now, so
We love you.
I'm waiting for someone to walk through the door, so I'm just sipping on the tea, but
Give me an hour and a half to 2 hours and I'll be there.
okay. I'll leave my doors unlocked. And I'll pass it over to Elise.
Hello, everyone. My name is Elise. I'm from Houston, Texas. I'm 17, about to graduate high school, and I'm going to Texas A&M next year for nursing. I was diagnosed when I was 8, and I had rotationplasty. I'm now almost 10 years NED, which is super exciting. Coming up in June, in June. Yeah, if everything goes well, I'll be 10 years NED. And the tea that I'm drinking berry saturated green tea, iced. I don't do hot tea. And I also don't like chamomile, to everyone who's drinking that. Not a fan. I don't know, it tastes like not something good. But yeah, I give this a 10 out of 10. It hits every single time. This stuff is so good.
Yeah, so I guess without further ado, let's dive in to these questions. So my first question is, I'm gonna pass it off to Mia first. Do you have to get to the airport earlier due to your disability or limb salvage?
Yes, but I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I play it a little fast and loose. Knowing that I am wheelchair, especially because I try in LA, there are two airports. There's Burbank and there's LAX. Burbank is like your small, cute little like girl next door airport. And then LAX is a giant, just behemoth, that is very unpredictable. So if I fly out of Burbank, I know I can get there an hour and a half early, or you know what I mean, like an hour and a half before my flight. And I'm like, this is great. Breeze through security. They get my wheelchair usually right away. It's lovely. LAX is an entirely different beast. So I do try to get there as early as possible, especially with a lot of construction. Always research if your airport is under construction because that can be really difficult. And if you have to move terminals, that can be difficult if you're traveling with your prosthetic, or if for some reason they don't have wheelchair transport that's taking you from terminal to terminal, which they should by law. But yeah, so I do try to get there a little bit early. But you know, as long it just if you have a feel for your airport, you know, you can get there as long as, you know, you kind of can eyeball the time and be like, oh, you know, wheelchair usually takes me this long. I can get to the plane by this time. I board first. I'll be on the plane and seated and it'll be great. But yes, definitely I do get there early, a little bit at least. Sloan, what about you?
Yeah, so I tend to get there a little bit earlier than normal, and obviously it depends on which airport I'm at, because Chicago and Atlanta have very large airports that you have like very few entrances, and then you have to like walk very far. In Dallas, it is very different. Like you go in and you walk 10 feet at your and you're at your gate, which is really nice. But you also want to know where to get wheelchair service because some airlines only have like reserved and you can't get it if you just go and say, hey, I need a wheelchair, which is really stupid.
It is.
But getting there early will help you figure that out, especially if you don't know the airport. And then sometimes if they have to call someone for you, they can take forever.
Yeah.
I I have waited almost an hour for a wheelchair before. Um, so just pay attention to which airport you're at and really like try and get there when you gauge, but go early, especially the first few times, because
Yeah.
it's a lot.
Also something I've noticed is that Delta, I'm from Atlanta and I go to the Atlanta airport, so this probably has something to do with it, but Delta's always good with the wheelchairs. And then I noticed the only other airline I've taken recently is Frontier. They're so bad. So definitely just like look into your airline.
So, Elise, I heard that you're pretty knowledgeable about the laws around traveling with a disability and what laws could be passed to make it more accessible for people with disabilities to travel. You want to touch on that a little bit?
Okay, yeah, so I've had to learn about the laws that like pertain to me a lot and can help me out. So especially with travel, there's all these ADA laws, but the very few that I know is that like going through TSA is crazy. And like, you know how all the different airports have like their own very specific TSA things and you
Mhm.
take your shoes off here, you don't do it here. So they're not allowed to ask you to take your leg off. Which I can't believe that they were originally asking people to take their legs off, but they can't do that, which I'm glad that's in place because like
Yeah.
I feel like some airport somewhere would make that a thing. And then also you're not supposed to like they can't make you take your shoes off, and to the point where I go through Intercontinental here in Houston where like they kind of get on to me if I do take my shoes off because I could sue them if I tripped and fell in their airport and I had shoes on. But it becomes a problem whenever I'm wearing pants because I don't really like you can't really tell that I have a prosthetic on if I'm wearing baggy pants. And then I don't take my shoes off and then I go through the line, they're like, take your shoes off, take your shoes off. I'm like, I can't, you told me not to. So there's that going through TSA, and then the wheelchair, like they have to be able to provide you a wheelchair to get on the airport, to get on and off the plane. And I think that's all the ones that I can think of right now. But it was just the main, like getting through TSA. It's crazy. But like there's those.
Sweet. No, thank you for telling us about that. Just because I know, I'm sure for people, if you were only recently diagnosed or recently had an amputation, and we're young, we want to travel, we want to see the world, especially if we're not sure about our timelines, or if disease could come back, and it can be really scary. And a lot of people have like bucket list trips that they want to go on, and so it's really helpful to know these laws that are applicable, at least within the US, just that you can't take your leg off, you can't, or you're not supposed to. And if they ask you to, you can speak up. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Mhm.
Um, and so I can touch on a little bit what going through security looks like for me as someone who has a limb salvage. So as technology evolves, we've all seen, we know the classic X-ray machine and the classic, walk through that's tall, but now they got those, and I don't know their official name, but I call them the swooshies. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Where they just kind of go around you? Yes. I love them. I love them. Those are my best friends, because when you walk just through the regular metal detector, my leg usually goes off. I have to be wanded. Sometimes they swab me for bombs. Like it becomes a whole extra hassle. And if you're already running late for your flight because traffic was bad, because it's LA, it can be a little bit stressful. And so always ask for the swooshy ones, even if they're trying to like use both of them at the same time. Just be like, hey, I have metal in my body, I need to do the other one, because otherwise it'll hold up the line. They're usually actually very appreciative that you speak up early, and kind of save both the agents and the other people in line time. But I do have a little bit of a horror story as well with metal detectors. I basically had pre-booked an entire Coachella trip that was non-refundable right before I was diagnosed. And so I couldn't get anything refunded. It was very expensive. Multiple people had plans and money in this, and I was like, I can't not go. So we go through security, and they almost confiscated my nausea meds, and they almost wouldn't let me in because they thought that I was hiding something, even though I was wearing a dress and was able to pull them up and show the scar and explain what I was doing. And I think it's because it's a non-traditional security group. So I think you just have to go into music festivals or concerts, knowing your rights, knowing what your meds are for, making sure that they're in a labeled bottle and not just in a baggie, because they can just be like, what if you're smuggling in drugs because it's a music festival? So just always try to keep your labeled medications with you, with your name on them, if you need to show ID. Technically, this shouldn't be something that they ask, because they don't have a right to know. It's a violation of your privacy and your medical rights, and it's very frustrating, but it does go when you go uneducated, it really helps. So, Camille, what does security look like for you?
It's so funny that you mentioned the medication thing, because I have something to talk about that. But I've been through security as like a fresh limb salvage patient back in 2013 when I had my original, and as a like very well healed, like my surgeon said I could run and jump if I really wanted to. It hurts when I do, I won't, but I've been on both sides. So, and I had to ask my mom for some to refresh my memory, because I was 10 when I was kind of in the fresh limb salvage recovery stage. So it's funny because my oncologist provided us with a letter stating that I had metal in my leg and that it could interfere with security screening. So we always asked to do the swoopy thing instead of the metal detector. And then eventually, when I think at that point when I first needed the letter, I was in a wheelchair. I think I was going to my Make-A-Wish or something. Um, so yeah, so I eventually did go through the actual metal detector, and I surprisingly didn't set it off. So I never had to present that letter. But a funny thing is I also had a letter that stated like of all of my medications and that either myself or my caretaker, my mom, could have these medications on their person. So I was on like Ativan and like oxycodone.
Mhm.
So we had a letter from my oncologist stating like I'm prescribed these. So I didn't know that was like not a thing that people did, but I also feel like shouldn't have to be a thing that we have to have
Yeah.
a letter potentially. Like they should just kind of be like, okay, like, but I get it because, stuff like Ativan and oxycodone, like they're substances that can become addictive and can be sold illegally and all that
Yeah.
jazz. So I get that. I get that. Another thing my mom said is that at one point I had to crutch through the metal detector when I was in a wheelchair and have my wheelchair be like pushed through a side gate. Which like, girl, what? Be so for real. Be so for real making me crutch through the metal detector. And I think honestly that might have been when I had like bilateral thoracotomy. So crutching on bilateral thoracotomy
Ooh,
scars, don't even, yeah,
no,
don't even get
no,
me
no.
started. And I've also had my hand swabbed for the bomb powder and had my wheelchair swabbed for the bomb powder. I'm not a bomber. I've never tested positive for bomb residue. But I feel like I'm really glad we're having this episode because it can be a little jarring being a
Yeah.
12-year-old and being swabbed for bombs. I'm just trying to go to Disney World. I'm just trying to go meet Mickey Mouse and they're swabbing me for bombs. Like what? Okay, anyway. That was really long-winded.
But needed.
Elise.
Oh,
But
Camille, I so feel you for that. Getting
what?
getting swabbed as an 8-year-old for bombs, girl. I promise. Trust me. There's no
Trust me,
bombs.
girl. I don't even know what a bomb
No,
is.
literally, no. They would swab me. I'd be like, what if, like, what if you find something? Like, what?
Yeah.
Okay, so for me going through security, it's the same thing as I mentioned earlier with like I usually wear shorts just because it's easier. So like I'm not getting yelled at by the TSA people, take your shoes off. And I'm like, I can't take my shoes off. You told me not to. But anyways, whenever like I get up to the people, I'll always tell them, I'll be like, hey, I have a prosthetic leg, so that they can like get the whole thing started early. Because up until I turned, I think it was 16, they had to get like a female officer who was trained to pat down kids up there, which are apparently is like hard to find. So I like get the process started early. And then they would send me through the swooshy thing. And then I'd come out the other side and they'd be like, take a seat, let's swab your hands, swab your legs. But then, okay, I hope I can say this on here. If I can't, it's okay. So I found this out on our latest trip to DC because I asked the TSA lady. So I went through the swooshy thing, and you know how like on the screen it always shows up like the color, like there's something going on in there, like you know that.
Mhm.
So it always shows up that like my prosthetic is yellow, but then like a little higher up in like the higher up area, it always shows like red. And I'm like, like where did that come from? Like what the heck? So then I'll always get out and I'll like as I'm getting thoroughly pat down, I'm asking the lady, I'm like, hey, like, do you know why it always shows up red there? Like what's going on? And then finally with one of the ladies, she was like, oh yeah, because your prosthetic goes so high up, like it'll flag if it's even close to that area. So I was like, okay, good to know. So then when I came back from DC, I went through the swooshy thing and I like leaned a little to the other leg and I have not been thoroughly patted down since. So that was really good to know because
Life hack.
life hacks, yes, no, because that's not been fun. Yeah. But oh, and then I also haven't been through security yet without another person. So I don't know how it's gonna happen because I have to like sit down and get patted down and have the bomb like swab. But then meanwhile, like my stuff's just sitting over there, like all my phones and like, my laptop and all the important stuff. So um I don't know, have you guys done that? Like had to sit there and wait for your stuff to go through? Because I haven't.
Yeah, I have, and it's frustrating, and thankfully I feel like stealing in an airport might be one of the dumbest things to do, especially where like at TSA. But it's
Yeah.
like, and especially with technology, it's like Find Friends is a thing, and like Life 360 and things where you can track your items, Apple AirTags, whatever, but so hopefully that never happens, but it still is jarring. It's like my stuff is over there.
Yeah.
People are staring at my worn in Birkenstocks. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't I
Yeah.
don't need people knowing how my feet mold to my shoes that well. You know what I mean? Like,
Uh,
so yeah, I mean, I'm sure we all have our own security horror stories. Sloane, do you have any TSA stories that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I have a few. One is with limb salvage. When I was 12 in late 2017, my family and I were flying to Hong Kong and Thailand um, for my end of treatment trip. And so I had just had surgery on my left leg to lock my growth plates on my left knee because one leg was growing, the other one wasn't. It was not good. Um, and I went through TSA and I was still 12, so they're like, you don't have to take your shoes off, whatever. I go through, they like push, I was like, I have metal in my leg. They didn't believe me. And they put me through the metal detector and then they went off and it was like, they're like, well, I guess you have to go through the spinny thing. So I think it was like 10 minutes that we waited for someone to come operate the spinny thing.
Oh, yeah.
And then I go through and they're like, it's still saying that. So I needed to have a pat down. And they were like, oh, we can't have your shoes on. And I was like, I can't take them off. I can't bend over. Like, that would really hurt. And so my mom tried to help me. And this TSA lady literally pushed my mom over so that she couldn't help her disabled daughter take her shoes off. And I was just like sitting there like, okay. So then I somehow got my shoes off and put them back on after the pat down, but I was just like so confused on what to do because they didn't have a chair and I couldn't bend down because I was in pain and I was like, whatever. But
Lawyer
since
up.
But since
Literally,
my
what?
amputation, I have traveled without my prosthetic on. And usually, like, they just, since I still have metal in my body and I also can't, like, just hop through and my crutches have metal in them, they take me in the wheelchair behind and then I just get swabbed, which is, annoying, but you kind of get used to it. But one time, these TSA agents asked me if I could just use two of the like wooden canes to get through the medical detector, like use them as crutches. And I was like, I'm like, do you want to get sued? Like, this is terrible.
Would
So I
you
told them
like to get
no.
sued?
I'm like, I don't know what you want, but this is not gonna work. And then like some people get mad because like I still have to go through the spinny thing without my prosthetic on because I still have metal in my body. And they're like, you're wrong. And I'm like, I think you want to see the x-rays? I have them on my phone. But I think that is just really stupid how they like try and get the easiest way possible, which is tends to be harder on them actually. Every single time.
Oh man.
So true. I feel like Sloane, you've shared on previous osteos about like your experience with like your doctor refusing you an amputation. And now we're having TSA agents say, girl, take this wooden cane and hop through the metal detector. Can the world just give you a break?
For real.
No, seriously.
I need a
Mhm.
break, but honestly, you get used to it, which kind of sucks.
You shouldn't have
My
to get
friends here at college, like, who aren't disabled, who have had pretty, obviously everyone has their own experiences, but they haven't had like huge medical problems. And I'm just sitting there like, they bring up this stuff and I'm just like, oh, this happened to me. And they're like, what? They're like, you gotta be kidding. I'm like, what do you mean? This is just normal. Apparently it's not normal, guys.
Mhm.
Not normal.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
This is a side note, but sometimes they're fun when people are complaining to be like, oh my God, I have this big test tomorrow, or oh my God, like I'm so lonely on spring break. I send them just a picture of me bald. Oh,
It's a power move, honestly.
the power move.
It's called perspective.
It's called
Mhm.
perspective. It's called taking perspective.
Yeah.
And
You gotta humble people sometimes.
they usually respond like, oh, I'm okay now. But Okay, follow-up question for Sloane. How do you pack your you said you don't wear your prosthetic to airports. How do you pack it with you and how do you bring it with you?
Okay. Well, sometimes I wear my prosthetic. Most of the time I try to wear my prosthetic, just because it makes going through security a lot easier, because then I can just walk through and then I get swabbed and it's fine. Um, and then when I get on the plane, I usually have forearm crutches just so I have crutches wherever I'm going. And I put those up in the container above me, or the flight attendants will put it in the um, little closet up front if there's not a lot of space. And then I take my prosthetic off and put it up top or in the space container up front, because my prosthetic is long enough that in like regular seats it like presses into my hip. So if you're an amputee and that happens, you are allowed to take up that space in those compartments or anything and get your leg off, because it can be painful and you have that right. And then without my prosthetic on, it's a little bit more complicated just because it's hard to get your prosthetic around. But for below the knee, since it's a smaller prosthetic, you can usually fit it in whatever carry-on you have or just an extra bag. And they do have, like, on the amputee store and stuff, they have special bags that are designed to fit prosthetics and carry the specific things that you need. But I don't have that, so I used a laundry bag.
It works.
Because it's like it has a backpack, it has a strap, like my leg was bended and just like fit in there, and I was able to put like an extra shoe and some extra little things in there, and I just had people carry it for me wherever I was going because I was traveling by myself. And then people just helped me put it up and it was fine. And then again, getting off, you just have to like let people know where your stuff is and that you need help, and they tend to be okay with it. But I would say you can travel with it like uncovered, like not in a bag, but it is way easier. Plus, it's really funny to see it go through the x-ray and see someone's face as they realize that it's someone's leg in the bag. Because the lady was just like sitting there and then she went, oh, and then she saw me and she was like, oh. So perks about that, but it's not terrible as long as you plan for it, and don't let anyone take your prosthetic and put it below the plane, because their prosthetics are so expensive and airlines won't actually insure the entire thing. So don't let them do that. Force them to put it by you. And that's what I have to say.
No, if they're gonna break a wheelchair, they're gonna break a leg.
For real, I'm like,
Not the good kind. for the theater girlies
theater
in the chat.
yeah, for me, yeah. Okay, next question. This is for everyone, but I'm gonna send it off to Penelope first. How do you navigate finding leg room in any place, like an Uber, taxi, a plane, or even a friend's car? And what like emotions does that bring up, if any?
Yeah, so for me, this is definitely a struggle. Because like I mentioned at the beginning, my leg like really does not bend very far. So usually like I'll sit in, sometimes it's fine if it's a bigger car, I can just like sit in the back seat. But even when I'm driving like myself, this can be kind of annoying. I usually just sit in the front seat and that's plenty of room. And then I'll kind of have to like sometimes prop my foot up like on my other foot. If it's like, because I'm also short, so it's like a so not only like is my leg not bend very far, but I'm also short, so my legs don't like touch the ground a lot of times. Like I'm sitting in my chair right now, my legs are not touching the ground. So I have like a little prop where I put my bad leg up. And so I have to like do this on like pretty much every like transportation I go on. So like on the plane, I'll like put my backpack under the seat and like prop my foot up on top of my backpack. And also like my leg just because sometimes it's gotten better. I've gotten on a little like a new medication. I'm on Celebrex right now, and so that's kind of helped with this. But like I would have such bad transition stiffness, so I'd like stand up and have to like after I get out of the car and have to just like stand there like using it into the step. And obviously that's really frustrating. Like
Yeah.
When I'm just like out with my friends or something, or just like all piling in an Uber, like gotta get somewhere really fast. Like, and I just realize like at the wrong like time that I cannot fit in the seat. Sometimes I'll have to like lift my leg up. Luckily I'm flexible because I was a cheerleader. And so I like lift my leg up and like put it across my friend's laps. And I'm just like sitting there. And yeah, obviously it's really frustrating because like I used to like a few months ago, like my leg was bending fine, and it's just frustrating that I've regressed so much on my leg. But it's definitely something that's manageable. Just something I do have to like think about. But most like my friends are all really accommodating and stuff. They like think about it before I do sometimes, and like, oh, you should go in the front seat, things like that. So that's really helpful.
Yeah, I think for me, like, I feel like my leg is in a pretty good spot right now. I mean, as good as limb salvage legs can be. So, leg room isn't the biggest issue for me, particularly in cars. Like, I feel like I'm good in cars, unless like you're in an Uber and the driver has his seat like all the way in the back. Like that kind of hurts.
Yeah.
Like that kind of hurts it's mostly my ankle that is the most painful. And like not like like not up near my knee. Um and then planes, I feel like it's 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 not painful. It's just like uncomfortable for me. Um which is just kind of like annoying. And I kind of have the thought like I'm 11 years post-op. Like, can this like stop? Like, can I just like have a normal leg? Um, what else? Oh, I would say my biggest issue, and I guess this isn't really like limb related, it's more just like my speed of being able to get out of planes and get out of Ubers because of my lung function. Because I've had a lot of mets and relapses in my lungs. So I'm a little slow to like maneuver myself out of the Uber. And I guess that does have to do with your limb salvage too, like just making sure you're like putting your foot down in the right place. You don't want to like twist your ankle. So I'm just very cognizant of that. But
Yeah.
um I feel like I don't have it like horrible, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree with you. Also, someone with a limb salvage. My biggest issues are if my leg is bent for too long or straight for too long, and I cannot wait in lines. Standing is my worst nightmare because I have neuropathy in my feet from chemo. And so waiting in a taxi line becomes very difficult, and it becomes expensive when you realize that, like, oh, I have to make sure I call this type of car ahead of time so I don't wait and cause myself pain and ruin the trip from the get-go. And so you kind of almost have to include, like, when you're budgeting for trips, like, you know, disability related, you know, upcharges that you have to deal with, like, getting a faster Uber or getting, it's really frustrating. And, if you're, going into a friend's car or going out, with your friends, and say that you get an Uber XL or it's a big car and people have to sit in the back, and I'm not tall but I'm not short, I'm 5'5", but it's not like I can very easily, especially since I just had a screw put in my ankle in January, it's not like I can very easily maneuver into the back seat of a Suburban. Like, it's not,
Mhm.
it's a tight space. I have broad shoulders, I'm broad hipped, got the messed up leg, it's just not fully even. And so it can be frustrating when it's like, hi, sorry that your boyfriends are 6'3", but they need to sit in the back because I can't make
Mhm.
it back there. And then I just feel bad. And I shouldn't feel bad for my disability, but
Mhm.
that's just kind of how the cookie crumbles with stuff like that. And another big thing is, Sammy, I know you're from Victorville, and
Mhm.
when you live in California, especially, there's a lot of driving that you have to do, especially if you're out in the high desert and you want to, get to the hospital, get to wherever you want to go. It's a
Mhm.
lot of driving. And, I have a right limb salvage.
Mhm.
And so it's very difficult living in LA, not being able to drive because Ubers are expensive, gas is expensive, everything,
Mhm.
here is expensive. But I couldn't drive for 2 months after my ankle surgery, and I can't. There are certain days where driving only 15 minutes kills my knee. and there are other days where I can drive 3 hours like I did last weekend. Do you know what I mean? Like and it's hard as someone who loves to road trip and who, like I want to go to Arrowhead and Big Bear and like all these wonderful places that are within, 3 hours of my house. And it's really frustrating when it's like, oh, I can't just hop in any friend's car and
Hmm.
make sure we get there safely, and it's just hard when you have all these extra things you have to pay for on top of being worried that you're slowing your party down.
Hmm.
Or then sometimes you have to deal with Uber drivers who have opinions on cancer and vaccines and things like that. And it just gets really uncomfortable. And if it's like, LA, a lot of traffic, sometimes it's
Yeah.
a 55-minute Uber and you're just stuck
Hmm.
there listening to some guy being like, my uncle had stage 3 pancreatic cancer and beat it with green juice and going vegan. I'm like, you think it's that easy? You think I wouldn't have
Hmm.
already tried that, dude? And so, but you just have to grin and bear it because you're in their car.
Hmm. It's so difficult getting around. Like, well, first of all, it's expensive being a girl in California, but then it's more expensive being a disabled girl in California. Because,
Mm-hmm.
like how you said, there's certain accommodations you have to take into account that other people probably don't think about. And like the traffic makes it so much worse because it could be like a 15-minute drive, but then the traffic can make it like 45 to an hour
Easy,
sometimes. And it's just
easily.
ridiculous. Even like for me, just getting to my appointments, because I was treated at Loma Linda, it's
Mm-hmm.
only about like an hour drive, but then just the freeways get so hectic and it's so hard being in the car for that long. Like personally, my knee, if I don't move around too much, or like if I'm in the same position, it locks. And then when I stand up, like it can be really painful.
Yep.
And it's just something that it's like unavoidable.
Yeah.
We kind of just have to stick it through. And then I love being in Ubers and Lyfts where they give me like tips and stuff. So I'm just sitting in the back adjusting their tip, I'm like, you're not getting 5 stars because you're telling me how I should treat my cancer. But but yeah, it's just really difficult. And then you also have to like give up. I mean, like for airplanes, I usually fly Southwest, and I've noticed that I didn't know that you can board first if you're disabled. I usually always just have to, I end up paying more for like pre-boarding
Mm-hmm.
just because I don't want to risk them telling me no, because I can't walk very fast. So I don't want to be rushed. So I kind of, yeah, no, no, now I know. So for future reference, but
Yep.
like when you get on the plane, the spots that have the most room, it's either the first row, like right there as soon as you walk in, but then you don't get a window. Or you have to sit in the emergency exit and then you have the flight attendant looking at you like, will you be able to save us if we need to open it? I'm like, girl, I don't know. I just need more leg room. Please bear with me. Have some mercy. So
Get this plane down safely. This is
yeah,
not a Sully situation. Okay. We need.
exactly. Yeah. I'm like, I'm not the one. I just need extra leg room, please, Miss Girl. I'm begging you. And usually they let me, but sometimes they're like, oh, like, I mean, one time someone said something like, if it would be safe for me to sit there. And I was like, I mean, yeah, I can, like, said, she was like, no, like, I mean, if something happens, can you like open the door and stuff? And I was like, I mean, I think my arms work, but I guess we'll have to see, right? Or do you want me to move? And she was like, no, no, no. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then I just sat there. But I think she wanted me to offer moving, but I was like, I'm not giving up the leg room. Like, we're already uncomfortable as it is. And if I paid for pre-boarding because I didn't know I could get on being disabled, then I'm gonna sit wherever the heck I want.
as you as you should.
Period.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
don't know.
get out there and get your pre-boarding. Like, just tell them the situation,
Yeah,
or
or
just don't tell them you pre-board.
like how you were saying, Penelope, sometimes um if you don't, let's say you don't wear shorts, because I will wear shorts sometimes, but I prefer wearing like loose leggings that can roll up to like show them. But sometimes if you're about to like pre-board, and like I've had instances where now I paid for the pre-boarding just because this has happened before, but I'll like say like, oh, I'm disabled and stuff, and then sometimes like I don't think they're allowed to, but they're like, oh, like do you have proof, or like in what way? Like you're young. And I'm like, let me tell you the Spark Notes version of my story, and you're gonna let me on
Right.
this plane right now.
Well,
Yep.
I
So
just get nervous because I'll talk more about this later, but sometimes I don't use the wheelchair. And then so like I'll just walk up to them and be like, I need a pre-board. So I get nervous that somebody like who's in line. Usually I'm not nervous at the gate agent, but more so just like other people are gonna be like, she's literally lying. And like that's just like a me thing. Like I shouldn't really care. And I try not to
mhm,
care, but like, I'll have to just like be ready to like pop my stuff if somebody
yeah.
tries to say something. But really really, I don't need to be so like defensive. I can just explain it if somebody asks. But like, it's just like frustrating that
Mhm.
sort of. And I do limp, so it's not really invisible. But some people sort of have like kind of invisible illnesses that people just think they know about. But
Yeah.
yeah.
I
But
always
yeah.
feel awkward when I do wheelchair and I then like get dropped off at the gate, and if I'm early, they literally leave you at the gate. It's not like they're like, "Oh, would you like to go to the store?" Like they'll ask you while you're still moving if you want to go to the bathroom or anything. That's really it. And they just
Mhm.
leave you. And then you feel people looking at you when you stand up to like go buy a water or something at
Mhm.
the bookstore or whatever. And
Mhm.
so then it's like I have to like, especially because I limp way less than I used to as time has gone on. You know, Rodney and I are almost at 6 years, and it's awkward because I feel like I almost have to like lean into the limp. I have to like fake
Mhm.
it all over again just so people don't look at me weird. And I'm like,
Oh, yup.
Yeah.
why are you looking to
Well,
begin with?
it's
Yeah.
super frustrating that people are like policing and stuff. But what's so frustrating, I've seen this. I've seen people on TikTok be like, life hack, go get a wheelchair and get cut through security. I've genuinely seen that people say that on TikTok. And I'm like,
So annoying because
you
then
are going to the hottest place when you die.
mhm.
Like,
Yeah, and they're just taking resources from people who need it. Like Sloane was saying,
no,
sometimes it's taken her up to like an hour to get a wheelchair. And is it just because some able-bodied person wanted to have the perks of, acting disabled, so then other people who actually need those accommodations, they don't have them to them like right
right.
away. They have to wait, and
And
it's so unfair. But I've seen that on TikTok too. It makes me so mad.
then it
Something
just
that
makes it look worse for us. Yeah.
Folks.
So, finding legroom was not super bad when I had limb salvage because I had really great mobility. Like my knee could bend all the way. It had great mobility, but it's gotten harder with my amputation just because my prosthetic physically can't bend all the way because
Mm,
it's metal on plastic and it just does not bend. Um, so for Ubers and stuff, I always try and sit in the front seat, because a lot of the time doors and seats in the back seats are too close together for my prosthetic foot to be able to get in.
gotcha.
But if I can't sit in the front, I either awkwardly just like hike my hip up and like try and get my foot up over the seat, or I have a rotator on my knee that I just flip my foot upside down, and that can help with spacing so that like
Mhm.
my foot and knee aren't as clashy with the seat because it can then contour like the upward slant. But it also really helps getting in and out of cars. Um, but it looks really weird, and I get a lot of weird looks from like Uber drivers when I do it. Um, and then something for people who need their prosthetics but can't carry them or aren't wearing them. I've had to ask Uber drivers to like carry my prosthetics into buildings like for prosthetist appointments because I'm in college and I'm by myself. And I would say just like tip well if you do that because it's a nice gesture that they're doing. They don't have to.
But you
And
shouldn't have to
also,
tip because that's just something you need. But anyway.
yes,
Mhm.
but I mean, still, it's nice to do that if you can. Obviously, if you can't, that's fine. And also, like, don't be scared to ask for help because, especially with like your leg being off, it is so blaringly obvious that you're disabled and you need help. Like, let them be a nice person or force them to be a nice person and get what you
That's when you give them 5 stars.
yeah, exactly. If they help and are super nice, treat them well. And then Elise, do you have anything?
Yeah, okay. Uber and I like we have beef. Uber's like my worst nightmare. Oh, I'll call an Uber. No, please don't. Guys, oh my God. Like it's not like I've even had any bad experiences. It's just I can never fit in the Ubers. Like, okay, this is the funniest thing. In DC, we had to get like an Uber, what was it, XL or something?
Mhm.
Like it was some big SUV. And I thought it was so funny because all of us kids getting in there, we're all like front seat people. Like I need to sit in the front seat kind of people. So we had to get some like hierarchy going. So we had Camille in the back, And the funniest thing, Walker was in the back. This like 6'9" man. I don't know how long his legs are. He was squeezed in the back. His knees were up to his like chest. Guys, he was squeezing back
And
there.
Andrew was in the back too.
No, it was so funny.
It was
Like
me,
these
Andrew, and
two
Walker.
tall guys. And then you had like me and Daniel in the front. I have a right rotation plasty. He's got a left rotation plasty. We're like, I took a picture. We're like crisscrossing over each other. And then Sloane was up front enjoying the leg room. Sloane was like, oh,
Okay.
relax.
You say that, except in that Uber, they had like the step up and my prosthetics on the right, and I was trying to slide in through the left, but I had to get up on my left leg, and then I couldn't sit down.
No, okay, that's
my
the
left leg,
that's the
because I
other
couldn't turn around. And then as I was trying to like grab on to pull myself up, the Uber driver closed the door on my fingers.
What?
No.
That's bad.
Oh, I hope that he did not
Just
get
be
hit.
vocal
Oh.
about what your
Nope.
needs are, because those cars are hell.
Yeah, that getting in and out of Ubers is so rough. Because you know, like you get the Uber, you got to get in and out fast because it's like you got to go, right? But really, when I'm getting in and out of cars, I lose all function in my right leg. So I'm doing all of it with a left leg, and I've got like dead weight on the right side. So especially when it's like high off the ground, I'm like I'm gripping. If there's a handle thing, I'm gripping that and pulling myself up. And then if it's a small, tiny car, like my friend, he's got this like tiny sedan, and I have to like I have to like fall into the seat and then like
Yep.
fold my legs in on myself. It's rough, guys. And I also hate driving. So I think I might just do nothing. I literally don't even know. I hate cars.
Teleportation.
Yes.
I might that's an option.
Okay, next question is for both Sammy and Penelope, because you guys seem to be experts in this area. What are some general tips for flying, with limb salvage and I guess also on treatment? I'll pass it off to Sammy first.
Okay, so I actually had the opportunity to talk to a friend up in Canada who's also an osteo warrior, and she travels quite a lot, and we are kind of bouncing back and forth and talking about different travel tips we have for each other. And one big thing that we came on was compression garments. Like, I don't know if it's just me, but when I travel, or the change of altitude or anything, like it's my legs swell, especially like the one that with my limb salvage on my right, like it's compression garments are so helpful. Like compression sleeves for my calves, that's the way to go. Yeah. And then when you're on planes, I know it's kind of difficult. It depends on where you sit, but personally, what helps is getting up and moving. For me, like I said earlier, I can't sit or stand for too long. Like I think how Mia was saying that, like one of the side effects from chemo, like you can't comfortably be in one position for too long or be standing for too long. So like that's one thing you need to take into account. Maybe like an aisle seat would be better for you, just because then you don't have to really like step over people to be comfortable. Another side note too is bathrooms on planes are not disabled friendly.
No, they are
I have
not.
such a hard time, not a good experience at all. I usually come out of there crying. But I think we all talked about it, having like a letter from your oncologist or your doctor that's kind of signed, because it's unfortunate, but a lot of the time, sometimes they won't believe us or they give us a really hard time. And sometimes those ignorant people just need a piece of paper to look at for them to be like, oh yeah, she's okay. We can let her on and stuff. So it just makes, oh, and then one other thing, Crocs, guys. Crocs are so easy to slip on and off at airports, getting on ships, like anything. I'm a Croc girl. Don't knock them till you try them. Crocs are the way to go in an airport.
Birkenstocks as well.
Birkenstocks too, but I just like Crocs,
We're on a budget. We need the Crocs, or even a knockoff Croc, a Walmart Croc.
We need an MIB Croc like collab.
Oh my God,
gosh.
with the agent on it.
Yeah.
Watching
I would
those.
wear those.
So I'll pass it to Penelope. You can go ahead and tell us about it.
Yeah, so just general traveling tips. I'm on treatment right now, so some things that I always need to bring. I always bring Band-Aids because my feet are really prone to blistering on regorafenib. If you guys don't know, like you get these feet rashes. That's
Hated it.
yeah, so no,
Don't
mine
talk
aren't too
about
bad
it.
now.
I'm traumatized.
Yeah, but I It's just a general thing. I love my sleep mask. I always have my sleep mask. It makes me tired, so I have to have that. But yeah, so I keep a lot of band-aids for my feet, and I also have to keep them dry and cool. So like sandals, like I don't know, thin socks. My mom has these like special wool socks that are like kind of sweat wicking. Something to think about if you're ever gonna travel on a regular them. Another issue that I've had to deal with is like trying to keep my medicine at the right temperature, because in some of the places that I've stayed in, there hasn't been AC, so I've had to like take my medicine with me, but obviously then I'm worried about losing it because it's very expensive medicine. So I just kind of have to like, that's just something I had to think about, like, is if I take it with me, if I'm leaving it in a cool area, it's just another thing to consider. Um, Another thing that I had to think about was if going to like the beach or just somewhere we're gonna be out in the sun a lot, is covering up my scar. I used to, because mine's pretty large up my thigh and then down past my knee. So I used to just carry my like compression sock and use that like right at the beginning of my LSS. And I had this like really funny tan line, and it was just like really pale where I used it. But I got this stuff called HY tape, and it's just like medical tape, and that was really good for covering up my scar. And I just kind of use it when I'm out in the sun, like at the beach and stuff. But it's really sticky, so put it in a separate bag if you're traveling with this. It doesn't get everywhere. But
Stick sunscreen also.
yeah, 6 cents. Yeah, so yeah, just just load that thing up, lather it up with sunscreen. Yeah.
Especially if you have a skin graft, you gotta make sure you put some SPF 100. And I know we want to get tan for hot girl summer, but we can't have everything we desire in this life.
Yeah,
It's true.
So cool.
Yeah.
You really gotta put SPF 100 on those skin grafts, folks.
Mhm.
Yes, I.
And just
Yes,
start
Yeah.
sunscreen on your face early. I'm already 25. Just it's gonna catch up to you. You just
Every
put
day.
sunscreen on your face
Every
too.
day.
Every day, SPF. You will
And we
never
don't
age.
want skin cancer in addition to osteosarcoma.
No.
No more cancers.
No more
No more
cancers.
cancer. No more cancer,
Aren't
folks.
we more prone to skin cancer after
Probably.
That's what I
I
heard.
hope not, but we probably are.
Yeah,
We're
you're more
probably
I
prone
wouldn't be
to any
surprised.
secondary cancer, especially skin cancer and eye cancer. So like if you're in the sun and you're getting like a bunch of UV in your eyes, you're more prone to get cancer from
Oh,
Dang.
So
So,
glad I wear
Sunglasses.
sunglasses.
sunglasses,
That's rough.
stuff like that.
Polarized
Really
sunglasses.
helpful.
Get them on
We
Amazon.
can't find peace. We can never find peace.
Oh,
Yeah,
God.
and then one other quirky thing I've done when I've traveled is like when I went to the beach with my friends, and like they just like I was on crutches and they just like picked me up on their back and then plopped me down, and I just didn't move until until it's time to go in. So, you know, if anyone out there really is fiending for the beach but they're on crutches, can't really walk, just you can get by with a little help from your friends, just in general. So I think that's all my travel tips. But if I think of anything else,
Make friends with people who lift. Good to know.
yes.
Yeah.
There are also some beaches that have like beach
Oh
wheelchairs that you
yeah.
can take into the water with. Like they
Oh.
have like special wheels to go on the sand and in the water. So that's
I
something
didn't
to
know that.
Well, since we're already talking about swimming in the beach, I have a little bit of a tidbit about the beach. So I have neuropathy in both of my feet that thankfully has gotten better, but for some reason, if I'm on an uneven surface, mm-mm, mm-mm, it is difficult. And so the sand, it hurts so much. Doesn't matter if it's soft sand. I've tried it all different sand terrains, if you will. And it is so, it bothers my feet every time. It's like electrical shocks are being sent up from the ground. Like I should be able to walk on sand. I like the beach. Like I used to do stand-up paddleboarding and skin diving and, just like I was an ocean girly. And now here I am and I can't even like stand in the sand. But I do have a little bit of a tip for my limb salvage girlies and or just any limb salvage people. I highly recommend just getting in the pool. And even if you're an amputee, if you can easily get up and down, some of the pool stairs, there's a good railing. just kind of hop on in, and it's lower impact. So you can do things that you can't do on land comfortably, like jump and run and cycle and do all these crazy things. And it's really, really fun, and it's low impact. It's also a wonderful low impact way to get your heart rate up. And I know that, osteo usually metastasizes to the lungs. So it can be difficult to, have that good lung function, and you can kind of boost that with water aerobics and stuff like that. So fun little fact about the water. But also sand sucks, and I think we can all agree on that.
Absolutely.
Elise, your thoughts?
Okay, so I can swim. That was like the first thing I could do right after surgery. Like even, I think my surgeon, like, she was like, no, go for it, girl, because like that's like, activity, low impact stuff. But I don't really get in the pool that much, especially like my friend had a pool party last night, and I kind of just like sat on the side and looked pretty. I don't know. I'm not a big pool girl, because like as soon as like the leg comes off, it's not like mean comments, but it's more like, whoa, what's going on down there? Like, and I'm not really one to deal with all that. And also, I've never really understood the whole thing about pools, like what you just get in water and you just like float around. I don't know.
Just
I'm
vibe.
not a big pool girl. And then when you get to the beach, guys, I cannot walk on the sand. I feel like, when
Mm-mm.
you're in a dream and like you just can't move forward, like that's like physically what it
It's
feels like to walk on sand. Like I'm moving forward, but I'm not moving forward. Like I'm trying to, like, oh my gosh, I went to the beach one time with my friends and I was huffing and puffing trying to get through that sand. Guys,
it sucks.
it was bad. I was like, are we there yet? Oh no, it's right up there. No, we're right here. We're staying right here, girl. So I'm not a big beach girl. And then even when I do go to the beach, logistically, I can't really get in the water because I'd have to take my leg off and then waddle into the water. And then great, we're in the water now. But when I get it back out, I have to like walk out, and then there's sand on my foot. And then when I try and put my prosthetic back on, because I have rotation plasty, so like my foot goes in there, I'm not able to have a sandy foot in a like
No.
a socket made specifically for the foot without sand. So it doesn't work. It's not I mean, I could get a water leg to get in the beach, but I also live in like the middle of Texas, so it's not gonna work out. So
Yeah.
I'm not a big pool or beach girl.
Another collab. We need an MIB mermaid tail for everyone, please.
Yes. Then I
Please.
would get in the
That
pool.
would slay. Let
Do
me
you guys
just
want to
say.
play mermaids with me?
You want to play mermaids, guys? Or with their MIB mermaid tails?
Sponsor.
What would
No.
that look like though? What would that look like though?
Oh no,
Just the
Clear.
Asian right there on the tail. That's all. It's just a
The
yellow tail with
entire
the Asian.
screen printed on the entire tail, yeah.
Oh man. All right. So Cam, I know up in Boston, you be on that public transit. I can't even imagine what that's like. Please spill the tea.
Well, when you have a limb salvage that hurts when you walk long distance and you live on or you go to school on a campus that is sprawled out in the middle of Boston and there's a T that runs directly through it, are you going to walk or are you going to take the public transit? Guys, let me ask the audience.
Public transportation.
We're
I
gonna
love
take
public
transportation.
transportation.
We're
I
gonna
love
take it. We're gonna take
Same
it.
thing.
Um, the first time I stepped foot onto the Green Line of the MBTA in Boston, I did not understand how fast the doors were going to close and how fast I was expected to go up several stairs. Why are there stairs in a train? And find a
That's
seat.
not right.
The doors closed so fast and the train started moving so fast that I actually collapsed into a stranger's lap. Yes. And I deeply apologized, and I wish I could have said I got cancer. I wish I could have pulled the C card because I think that would have made more sense, but I was just like, I'm just a girl.
That sounds like the beginning of a romance movie, you know? Like,
Oh my
Rom-com
gosh.
meets.
It was
like a meet cute.
middle-aged a meet cute. No, it was like a middle-aged man, and he was like, "Are you
Oh.
okay?" And I was
At
like,
least he was nice.
"Yeah."
Cool dad vibes.
Yeah, it was like cool dad vibes, like really nice. Maybe at another time, in another universe, it would be a meet cute. But from there I learned, especially for the train, I mean, and for the bus as well, grip onto the railings and grip on to the, like, there's like railings like above you. Grip on with both hands if you have to, because thank God when I got on that train, it was like pretty empty. If it was packed and I collapsed, because in Boston, these people need to get to their destination, so it will be sardines in there. And unfortunately, I will not be able to find a seat, and I will have to stand for a period of time until some people get off and a seat opens up. And that sucks. But you just gotta hold on for dear life. And that's really all you can really do. The bus is a similar situation, which almost is worse. It almost moves faster than the train because it's usually like just you and another person getting on. You tap your card in, and then they immediately shift lanes. So you're going like you gotta really have, like, I can't imagine having a fresh limb salvage and navigating Boston University campus. Like, absolutely no way. So here are my takeaways. Hang on to the railing. It's better than walking, especially with you know, my lungs that are at like 63% functionality. That would be really bad if we didn't have public transportation. Also, forgot to say this. This was like my main point in my brain. Yes, you can take the disabled seat. There are seats that are marked like elderly or disabled. Take that seat. You have earned it, girl. You have earned it. You
It's true.
are, this is your fight song. Take back your life song. And you can take that seat. And if people give you looks, look them straight in the eye back. And if I had Sammy's bravery, I would confront them. But I'll pass it over to Sloane for some more tips.
Yeah, I used to take the Chicago L and bus system to and from school every day. This was when I had limb salvage. I would constantly wear shorts because I despise pants. They rub, especially on my limb salvage scar. Hated it. So usually my scar was very visible, and I would get a lot of stares from people because, you know, what's more interesting than a 14-year-old that has a giant scar? Apparently nothing. But while my scar was still like very visible, people would still refuse to give me their seats. I'd be like, dude, I'm disabled. And they're like, you're too young. And I'm like,
That's not how it
no.
works.
Um, but I found out that people are actually more responsive if you say that you like recently tore your ACL or something, versus that you had a knee replacement due to cancer. Because they're like, oh, that was a while ago, you're fine. But people can somehow relate more to ACL and stuff. So I started saying that. Also, if you ever take crutches, people will bend over backwards for you. Except a lot of the time it's unhelpful and they just get in your way. So really stand your dominance and tell people when things are helpful or not, because sometimes like people were trying to be helpful and they would actively hurt me. So stay like that. And also, if you're planning on taking transportation in a wheelchair or any time that you need an elevator or any other assistive help, please pay attention because a lot of stations are not accessible. Usually on maps they'll have like the things that are like, this station is accessible, this one's not, blah blah blah. So really pay attention to that before you even go, because I know I have been stranded a few times just because they said they were accessible and then there was construction or any number of things that make it way harder. And then with like an amputation, obviously it's more obvious that you need help if your leg is showing. So take advantage of that. Sit if you need to sit. And also be aware in packed trains, if like my prosthetic has parts that can come off easily, keep track of what's on your leg that can fall off and make sure it is with you when you leave. Because if I lose like this tubing, my leg will start falling off, but I only have one extra and it's not always with me. So just be very conscious of everything and also just general safety. Keep your things with you and Don't talk to strangers because they're weird.
Agreed. And do you have any extra essentials that you bring with you? Like when you know
Yes. So
you're
I
going on a
mean,
bus or a trip or
it depends on where I'm going, but if I know that I will like be in a hotel room or something, I'm going to bring crutches so I can like get to the bathroom in the middle of the night without putting my entire leg on because that can be a process.
Yeah.
Um, but also with crutches, I have like extra of the little ends, so if one of them breaks,
Mhm.
I can still use them. Because I have had that happen where they just break in the middle of nowhere and I can't get anywhere. I also bring like extra Velcro, extra tubing, for my prosthetic, which is, because I have a specific setup that needs those, but a lot of prosthetics don't. But just bring whatever you need to maintenance it so you don't have to like find a hardware store and then find the specific things and then, do all of that. I would also say if you have like an Allen wrench or Allen key that you need for your prosthetic to like tighten it and you've had problems with that in the past, bring it with you because I've had problems with like my knee separating from my prosthetic socket and I didn't have one. And I was like, I can't walk. So having that and also towels to take sweat out of your liner because it can get sweaty in a dark, non-breathable place while you're walking around.
Mhm.
And also bring more socks for your prosthetic than you think you need because if one gets really dirty or rips or you lose one, then you have enough to make sure your leg is comfortable. And also don't think, oh, I can make it to that place without putting a sock on. Put the sock on when you need it because that is how you get blisters and then you can't walk and it's awful. So just like take care of yourself and make sure you have any of the things that you would use at home to take care of your prosthetics and stuff like that because it is so important, especially on vacation. You don't want to miss out, but if you don't have it, you can't walk and oops.
Agreed. Yeah. And it's that international travel kind of becomes it's its own thing too. And one of the things that helped me the most, and I think that this is just a great life hack for any non-traditional issue that you have. And I'm not even normal things like my mom is allergic to all dairy products, mushrooms and truffles. And so if we're traveling, there's sometimes a language barrier. So we went to Japan last year, had an amazing time. Everyone was so kind and just so understanding, very, very easy to get around. Everyone's very respectful. And what we like to do is before we go anywhere, say you don't have Wi-Fi or you don't have data, just while you're still home, go on Google Translate, type in your allergies, your disabilities, how people can be helpful, etc. Screenshot it so that you have it in your phone. So it doesn't even matter if you have data or not. You still have a way to communicate and be like, hey, this is how I need help. Can you help me? And they'll be like, yes. And then, you can kind of go from there. And that is a life hack that has saved us so much time and trouble. And we did a helicopter tour of Kyoto and it was up this steep driveway. I like the steepest thing ever. And I was fine going up, but as my fellow LSSers know, going down is a lot harder, especially if you don't have any control over your knee like I do. I have no control over my knee. Rodney has a mind of his own the second there's any downward slope. So we basically had to Google Translate. Thankfully, we had data to this guy who's probably around my age. And we were just like, hey, like, can you hold my other arm while my mom holds my other arm? And we like inch down. And through Google Translate, we had this whole incredible conversation. And it turns out his friend had osteosarcoma in his arm and was like 4 years NED. And so it was like this crazy connection. So keep those screenshots on hand because you never know when they're, gonna be helpful or the connections that you might make while abroad. And we are all one human species and it's beautiful.
That's
So
awesome.
yeah. Sammy, I know you travel a lot internationally as well. Do you have any tips for international travel?
Pre-cancer, I used to look a lot different. So when I do travel internationally, I tend to take more documentation than I probably need to. And it just makes the process a little bit easier. I feel like you shouldn't have to prove that you are who you say you are, but feel like we're not the same people we were before our diagnosis. So at least personally for me, like all of my documentation, I look a lot different than I do now. So I would say just make sure to bring extra documentation just in case. It makes the process easier.
Great tip.
For international travel is for me on treatment, I had issues with some of my gastrointestinal um issues. So something that you should think about is like that traveler sickness is a thing. And if you're on a specific treatment, that can make it so much worse. So
Yeah.
bring Imodium, like try to avoid like water sometimes. You can look it up to see if it's safe. But even I went to Costa Rica a couple weeks ago with my mom. I was really lucky to be able to do that. And even there, like the water is safe to drink, but we still both got a little bit of a bug. It wasn't anything too crazy, like it was over with within like 24 hours. But get that Imodium because that will help prevent you from having gastrointestinal issues like on the plane that you can't really control. So that is kind of my big tip for that. Also,
On that note, a quick extra tip. When you all become old enough to get credit cards and start credit cards and things like that, go for ones that have airline miles if you can afford it, because that way you can get more upgrades and that way you have more leg room. And so that's kind of like an investment in yourself. So if you're traveling, even if you don't travel a lot, you will have that much more opportunity to get upgrades. And yeah, and I know that traveling throughout different parts of the US and the world can be really, really different. So Penelope, I'm going to send it back to you. What have you noticed is different from, each place that you go to?
yeah, a lot of places in the US are kind of the same. Like, I don't know, just in general, like kids would like just stare at my scar and stuff and just like look at me, especially when I was like bald and I had crutches. The kids were always like, I was like, anyway, but obviously they're just curious. I only had like one time when somebody was like really rude, and this was like in Nashville. We were walking down Broadway, it's like a busy street,
Yeah.
everyone's and like we were walking slow. Obviously, I can't walk very fast. And then one lady was like, "Can y'all please hurry up?" And I was like, "I have cancer." And then she's like, "Oh, you want to fight or something like that?" I don't know. She was just like getting all up in our face, and I was like, and then she saw me limping, and then as she calmed down. But so I don't know. Some people can be annoying about that, but usually like once they realize they're like chill out. Yeah, and I went to Costa Rica and everyone was like very accommodating and kind. Once they kind of found out, I felt like I got a little extra like TLC. Like the tour guide like made me a little like he fashioned me like a little grasshopper made out of like a palm frond and gave it to me. I was like, that's so sweet. But yeah, everyone was very kind there. And I had a great time. And I think for the most part, people are just around the world like tend to be accommodating when they can. It's just when they like forget that, people have other like experiences that they don't have. And when they forget that, then they can be rude. But then when they remember, they tend to be nice and accommodating.
Yeah, for me, probably the most notable story I have is in the great and beautiful city of New York City, in New York, in Manhattan. I was there for a clinical trial and I was status post limb salvage revision. So I was in a wheelchair with my leg. I had to have my leg elevated up. So my leg was fully protruding out.
Oh, God.
And so we had to walk. I don't know how many blocks from the Ronald McDonald House where we were staying to Sloan Kettering was. I was 12, so I feel like it was around 8 or 10 blocks. But and I don't know if this is nice or bad about New Yorkers, but even in a wheelchair, my disability wasn't visible. We would have people genuinely bump into me and my mom in the wheelchair, fully disregarding that I was there. Like you would think like, oh my God, like she's in a wheelchair. Let me step out of the way. No. Actually, let me step in front of them and block them. And let me make this impossible for them to walk. It was so bad. Luckily, I don't think anyone bumped into my actual limb salvage leg because that would have hurt so bad. But if you're fresh off of a limb salvage, I would not recommend going to New York City. If you're in a wheelchair, I would not recommend going to New York City because people do not care.
Something Something I found for New York is get yourself someone who's really okay with just screaming at people to get out of the way. Because I went to New York in a wheelchair and my mom was pushing me and she would just yell at people, "Hey, wheelchair, move!" And people would move. So like just getting someone who's okay with just like making people move out of the way. Because I don't think I was
Love it.
bumped once, but I guarantee you if my mom
Bark at
hadn't
them.
been doing that,
See,
I
I
would have
would need
been
to hire.
done for.
I would need to hire Sammy
Bark at
because
them.
the bark at them. Yes. But I'm pretty sure like I just relapsed. Like me and my mom were not really. I was also 12. I don't think I could scream at them, and my mom was obviously like shook up. Like I just relapsed and going on a clinical trial for the first time. So we didn't really have it in us to scream at people. And New Yorkers are crazy. Like I don't
That's
know.
true.
So, but
Originally from there.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna be hiring Sammy as my certified barker agent.
We should start a Barker agency. I just
Make
travel
it
around.
bark.
SBM.
Bark
SBM.
MIB.
Yeah.
Make
All right,
it bark.
Elise, I'll pass it off to you.
Okay, so I have like just things that I've noticed because I've never gone international, but I've traveled a little bit within the US. So I don't know if it's I don't wanna I may be a little biased because I am from Texas and I kind of like it here. I feel like whenever I'm in Texas, like whenever I do wear shorts, because it gets hot. So I'll wear shorts out sometimes, and most people will like mind their own business. Like if they do see it, they're like, oh, okay, like just trying to process what it is, and they get back to their own business and stuff. But I was traveling, I actually forgot what state it was. It was either it may have been Arizona or California or Florida. It was a state. It was a state. And I was yeah, I was walking around the city or we were in the mall and it also happened at the airport again. I had people like I was turning heads. I was like, Stop, guys." I was like literally turning heads. I was like, what's so interesting about it? I don't
Giving Florida.
yeah,
It is
it
giving
honestly may
Florida.
have been Florida.
It's giving Florida.
But I
I'm
don't know.
sorry.
I wasn't used to it because it just doesn't really happen here. And then, oh, speaking of Florida, because it may have been Florida, I was in Disney World 2 years ago on like a school trip, and I wore shorts throughout it because it was easier to pack, and I was also sweating. So I wore shorts. And guys, I've never gotten like mean looks or like nasty looks from people, but oh my gosh, I was getting like glares and like nasty looks. It was mostly from people my age, also there on a school trip. I don't know what was going on. Like I saw it like 2 times, and I told my friend about it, and he was like, "What? I don't see that." And then it happened like 2 seconds later, and he went, "Oh gosh, what the heck?" So I don't know if they were like jealous. They were like, "Oh, that amputee is having fun. What's going on?" I was so weird, but like I was turning heads, and people were glaring at me. It was weird. It was weird.
So I travel a lot to Mexico, like different parts of Mexico on cruises and stuff. And I also have family in Mexico. And they're, I mean, the comments that I get here, California, in the US, like sometimes it's out of pocket stuff. It's like, oh, what happened to your leg? Oh, I had cancer. And then they're like, oh, my like so and so passed away from cancer. Or they're like, oh, well, if you try this and try that, like how we talked about how Uber drivers give their
Yes,
2 cents. Over there, if anything, it's like the opposite. Like I got so much hype. I was hugged by strangers. I can't even tell you how many times people stopped me to pray for me. And it was just like, I was like, so if you want to feel good and be around nice people, I know Mexico gets a bad rep, but but don't knock it till you try it. It's actually very nice there, and a lot of the people are like really understanding. And if anything, like they were like offering rides to like different places and stuff. Like the taxi people were like, "Oh, we'll take you for free." Like I didn't know that that was your story and stuff. And they're so sweet. And I mean, personally, I haven't had a bad experience when going over there, and they always just say nicer things than I feel like people do here. Like they
I'm gonna have to agree with you for sure. I've never had a bad experience ever in Mexico, and I've been all over, and it is an amazing country. Highly recommend.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's a cultural thing too, because I know that like I was raised to like, if someone was in my situation, I know that I probably wouldn't say half the things that most people feel entitled to say to us disabled people who have gone through cancer. But it's just
And it
really
is
wonderful.
entitlement.
It is, yeah.
You're completely right on that.
But until we can fully normalize barking, thank you for tuning into Osteo. the Osteosarcoma Podcast. Be sure to follow MIB Agents on social media at the links in the description for all the hot goss and intel. Thank you so much to Penelope, Sloane, Elise, and Sammy for joining us today on the pod. We've been your hosts, Camille
And Mia, and until next time, that's
That's the tea.
Bye, guys.
bye.